Hey guys, welcome back to the YouTube channel. It's your boy Collie Blocks, and it is that time of year again, ladies and gentlemen, that people are doing their AFL ladder predictions for 2025. So I decided to do one myself, seeing as I've been doing it for the past 4 some years now. So yeah, here are my ladder predictions for 2025. Before we jump straight into things, I just want to say this is my opinion, so if you don't necessarily agree, feel free to write whatever you want in the comments, and yeah, without further ado, let's get straight into it. No surprises here. I reckon Richmond will finish 18th on the ladder. They're completely starting from scratch with drafting 8 new players in the draft, including number 1 draft pick Sam Layla. But with having barely any players from their premiership winning team, I reckon they won't finish very high, due to the fact that they don't have much experience. West Coast are a bit like Richmond in a way. However, they do have a lot of exciting upcoming players such as Harley Reid and Ruben Gimby, and they still do have some premiership players from their 2018 side such as Jamie Cripps and Jeremy McGovern. But at the state that they're in right now with the new coach coming in, I just don't think that they're at the rising stage just yet. Join in the chorus and sing it. North Melbourne are a team full of potential with young talented players on their list, but somehow haven't been able to capitalise. They have some of the best young talent in the league and are coached by 4-time premiership coach Alistair Clarkson. They've been a bit unlucky, finishing almost last every season, but if they can get a couple of wins on the board and finish higher than 16th, I reckon they are heading in the right direction. It's a grand old flag, it's a high five. Ever since their 2021 premiership, Melbourne have been on the ropes ever since. From going out in straight sets 2 years in a row to not making the finals completely in just the span of 3 seasons. Which probably suggests if Melbourne don't make the finals this year, then I reckon they'll sack their coach, Simon Goodwin. The pride of South Australia. Slight improvement from last year from the Adelaide Crows. When they're good, they can produce some really good games of footy, but they've known to be really inconsistent during the season. They were a bit unlucky to miss the finals in 2023, but they have proven that they can play finals. They've got a really good talented list with the likes of Ben Keys, Josh Rachele and Jordan Dawson, and I would like to see them make the finals in the next couple of years. It seems like every year Gold Coast doesn't make much improvement, and that's what I'm predicting for this year. I feel like they're not ready for finals just yet, seeing as they've only just started adapting to Dimmer's game plan. However, last season they did manage to knock off some of the bigger clubs contending for finals, such as Hawthorn, Collingwood and Geelong. Essendon are the type of team who would get everyone's hopes up at the start of the year, and then at the end of the year just completely collapses. They are incredibly capable of making or even winning a final with a huge variety of talent and skill, but then somehow end up in the same position every year. I'm keeping them at 12th for now, but I would like to see them make some improvement this year. Freo are a bit more of a defensive team who are a bit less enjoyable to watch. If I'm being fair, they're not really as well coached as they could be. Freo have done well with recruiting Shai Bolton from Richmond, but I reckon Freo need to start kicking a bit more accurately, seeing as they usually score more behinds than goals. This one I'm not too sure about. The Saints are more than capable of making the finals, but I just think there are going to be some stronger teams who will make it ahead of them. However, last season they did manage to play well against other top 8 teams, defeating Carlton and Sydney, but they did lose a lot of close games that they should have won, and if they did win those, then they would have been in the finals. They are losing a couple stars, however, such as Josh Battle, Brad Crouch and Tim Membry, but I still think they will play pretty well, just missing out on the finals by a couple spots. Knocking on the top 8, I have the Western Bulldogs. I reckon the thing that'll be separating the Doggies from the top 8 will be their points and percentage. I'm predicting that they'll have a bit of a rocky start to the season, but they'll come home strong, just missing out on the top 8. Well, there's a big sound from the west. Compared to the other top 8 teams on my list, I wasn't really sure where to put GWS. They do have quite a tough fixture with 6 away games in 8 rounds, and a few heads might have dropped in that 44-point choke in the semi-final. I might be a little harsh chucking the Giants this low, seeing as they have players such as Jesse Hogan and the upcoming Darcy Jones. But like what I said earlier, there are going to be a lot of teams who are competing for a good spot in the top 8, so I reckon GWS might finish quite low. I might piss off a couple of Port fans here, but they are a bit overrated, especially when it comes to finals. However, they do manage to get enough wins to make the top 8 and sometimes are good enough to make the top 4. They did manage to have some really good wins last season, including flogging Sydney by 112 points. But with the pressure that Ken Hinkley's facing plus a really tough fixture, they might slip a couple of spots. As much as I'd love to see Collingwood win the premiership, being realistic, I don't think we're at the stage just yet. I reckon there's a bit of work to be done after last year's performance, and there are some big changes in the team with players like Tim Membry, Harry Perryman and Dan Houston joining. But with so many teams looking for a spot in the top 8, I think it'd be really lucky if we made it to the top 4. Hawthorn, Hockball, Hogwarts, whatever you want to call them, will finish just outside the top 4 due to the fact that I reckon during the season they'll lose those games that they are expected to win, costing them a spot in the top 4. I know a lot of people are hating on them, but to be honest, I reckon they are a very good young talented side with the likes of Nick Watson and Jack Ginnivan, and I reckon they can do a lot of damage during the season and during the finals. We are the Navy Blues. Carlton were a bit unlucky last season, just barely scraping into the finals and getting smashed by Brisbane, but they should bounce back this season being a potential premiership contender. They love to disappoint their fans, but I reckon this year will be different. They have a really strong finals-worthy side and they may even make the grand final. We are Geelong, the greatest team of... It's usually pretty easy to predict where Geelong's going to finish. They always manage to make it into the top 4, and that's because they are a very strong, skilled side who've been coached incredibly well. I do expect them to have another really good season with signing Bailey Smith from the Western Bulldogs, and if they can keep playing their usual attacking game of football, then you never know, they might be able to do some damage. Cheer, cheer the red and the white. The Swans are probably not the best team when it comes to finals, especially grand finals, but during the season they can play some fast elite football. Obviously with the new coach Dean Cox there might be a few changes to the way they play, but during the season the Swans do tend to win most of their games and manage to secure a solid spot every season. Everybody knows that last year's premiers were the Brisbane Lions, and this year I'm predicting them to come up as minor premiers, not necessarily winning the premiership though. I'm also predicting first position will be decided by a clash between Brisbane and Sydney earlier in the season, with Brisbane winning therefore taking out the minor premiership by 1 game. Well guys, that's my 2025 ladder predictions. Like what I said at the start of the video, if you don't necessarily agree with the predictions, feel free to write what you think in the comments. But yeah, if you did enjoy the video, chuck us a like and maybe even subscribe. I'm not forcing you to, but it is completely free, so go ahead if you want to. But yeah, that's all from me. See you in the next video.